Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian dictator who led that country with an iron fist for over 20 years, has been unseated in a very fast and very abrupt coup just earlier this month. To the leaders in the West, to Justin Trudeau, to Bob Rae, Canada's ambassador to the UN, this was all cause for celebration. This was a victory for democracy and for the Syrian people to finally rid themselves of Assad. But who is now in charge? Who is now leading this country? Because from what we can see on social media, it appears to be a group of radical Islamists who were once former Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighters. So is this all really a victory for Syria and for the Middle East? Or could it be the start of something much worse? Joining us now on the Faulkner Show is Jasem Aljuraid, an investigative journalist and a former parliamentary candidate in Kuwait who's joining us from Ottawa. JJ, thank you so much for joining us. Let me just ask you this. Who is now in charge of Syria?
Thank you for having me, Harrison. Well, it's a big complicated, it's a complicated situation there in Syria. And this complexity is taking everyone into a surprise that they were like rebels and the rebels took the power and the power is for the people's right. And that's not correct. So Mohammed Al-Golani, nicknamed Mohammed Al-Golani, his official name is Ahmed Al-Shara. And Ahmed Al-Shara now is, he used to be like he's an ex-Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So he came to the power with the promise to the IRGC. That's the information I got my hands on. That the Brotherhood, which is the puppets of the IRGC, the radical Islamists in the region, they have dealt with a lot of ecosystem changes in the Middle East, where one Brotherhood power falls and then another one comes to the power. So they use Syria now, and we will talk about some technical situation between them and Saudi Arabia as well, because they are trying to establish the Islamic State, and they cannot have two Islamic states in the Middle East while the Saudi Arabia is trying to reform the Islamic diplomacy and have peace with Israel. So they are radical Islamists with the help of the Brotherhood, and they are now in the interim ministry. So they have an interim prime minister who had two flags next to him. One is the Sharia law flag, and the other one is the rebel flag.
So let me ask you about that, because we've seen this white flag. It's not the new flag of Syria that's got green on it, right? It's a white flag with Islamic text.
Yep.
What is that flag, and what does it represent exactly?
This flag represents the Sharia law project. It says no God but Allah and no prophet but Muhammad. So this statement is discriminatory to a lot of people in Syria. While they use this flag to legitimize their movements in Syria, we had to raise some awareness messages to the public, and we said that this is a Sharia law, and Assad and those people who came to the power, they were in a very good harmony. By the way, he allowed them to take all the cities one by one, and then they allowed them to leave with $2 billion to Russia. So that was it. And there's a new era now with the Sharia law application is in progress.
So who was behind this sudden coup? Because we know for many, many years, the Americans have wanted to have regime change in Syria. They wanted to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. In fact, I believe Obama said that explicitly. So who was behind this sudden coup? Was it the United States? Was it Turkey, for example?
Well, Turkey, that's correct. And the United States, I don't think the United States have a lot of influence right now or access to this region, because the ecosystem change is overriding any diplomacy in this region. So they're trying to react to whatever is happening, because if they are in control, they wouldn't send their weaponry units in Syria right now. This is the first time we see this after a very long time. So Erdogan wants to take all the pressure from initiating a Kurdistan state from his land within his borders and send it further to Syria to establish that Kurdistan state which we would love to see a Kurdistan state in the region. They deserve to rule themselves in a democracy. This is their plan and their promise. So Erdogan is behind it. And Erdogan offered a lot of intelligence to those people on how to present themselves in the media with the help of the IRGC, the Islamo-fascist regime that is ruling Iran right now. So they both have a lot of interest in Syria. And Syria has been a logistic help to Iran, to the radical Islamists who's ruling Iran, to pass all these weaponry units to Hezbollah. And Israel is another party that is watching from distance. And then they said, while Erdogan had a huge buffer zone in Syria, we are also we have obligations towards our nation to defend them. So they also had few kilometers buffer zone. And then the complication is that, will Israel accept the change? Will the USA accept the change? And the president-elect, is he happy about what is going on right now? The complication is continuing. And Erdogan is the one behind those radical Islamists, because he used them in the past to take Bashar al-Assad down, and he was against Putin and the IRGC.
So let's get into that. So what are the long-term implications of this? What do you expect to see out of Syria now that the country is led by a radical Islamists? What does this mean for Israel? What does this mean for the region of the United States?
Well, Israel had Mr. Netanyahu has made a statement, and he said we support the will of the Syrians, but we don't want to see another threat to our nation. And if you have any close ties with the IRGC, I just wanted to say it loud and clear that we are not going to allow anyone to establish the radical Islamist regime there in Syria to be another arm or another militia proxy arm for the IRGC. I can see three states in Syria. That's my analysis. And I can see a Druze state, I can see Kurdistan state, and I can see the Islamic state. But the Islamic State has to have some sort of, the harmony between civil law / Islamic, because we know the Brotherhood, they change their colors within a year. And this is what happened in Egypt. I'm not bringing anything from my imagination. So three states, and I see that the United States will help the Kurds to establish their state in Syria. And the Druze, I think, will have their own land as well. This is what I think, because Bashar al-Assad himself, he couldn't have the nation grip for his entire land. Syria is such a huge geographical area where the geopolitics in Syria is complicated. So Israel will always watch from distance, and they will not allow Iran to create another proxy arm in Syria.
Would the new leaders of Syria really allow a Kurdistan state in the northeast of the country if that's where all the oil is in Syria? Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not where all the oil is? That's why the United States is in the northeast of the country. Would the new leadership in Syria really allow that?
Well, I don't think he has any say on allowing dividing the country. He's not the president yet. You're talking about radical Islamists who joined the ecosystem, and they are in control of the ecosystem. So they brought someone else in the front line. So the front line doesn't mean that they are issuing any legitimacy in front of the global countries. Now, he has called everyone, he invited everyone to have a parade, the celebratory parade last Friday, which is yesterday. And the only message you hear is that put your hijab on and divide men and women. Don't be next to each other's. And the Kurdistan establishment is going back hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So when you look at the map, they went to the exact place where they were having that land established and ruled by their people. So yes, they have natural resources out there. I don't think it's a strategic decision to go to the natural resources. Still, the negotiation is ongoing under the table between the Islamo-fascist rebel and the international panel. And I think Harrison, in the next, because he had a speech just a while ago talking about his relationship with Iran and his relationship with Israel and his relationship with Russia, and he thrown like really very weak basis, talking about the relationship with Russia, that is like, we have to be careful and we are not against the Iranian people but against the power, and the power brought him to rule Syria. It's very complicated, but I think Kurdistan has to be established, and Erdogan wants that to get out of his shoulders in front of his nation.
Now I want to go back to this guy Al-Golani, right? And he leads the group called HTS. This is a terrorist group, right? Listed terrorist group in the UK. I imagine it's the same in the United States. And I read a report that this guy was former Al-Qaeda and former ISIS. Is ISIS coming back in Syria with this Al-Golani guy?
He is an ex-ISIS. He's done a lot of crimes in Iraq. He's done a lot of crimes in Syria. He opened the slavery market. He sold the Yazidis women. He killed a lot of people just because they have a different faith in Syria. And we know that the ethnicity in Syria is like such a complicated matter. Another thing is that the ISIS guy has rebranded himself. And he said that, you know what, I have a different skin now. I can wear whatever you're wearing. I'm not going to wear the black flag today. And you know what, I'm going to put the brotherhood in the power. And they're highly educated, but they will have the Sharia law flag behind them. And whoever is trying to take a selfie with this Al-Golani, and his name is Ahmed al-Shara, this Ahmed al-Shara has always, pointing at the women who are trying to take selfies with him. Imagine, he's asking them to cover their head before they take a selfie with him. So Muhammad Al-Golani, which is Ahmed al-Shara, he's trying to, take this power slowly to overrule the people. The first program that was aired on the Syrian mainstream channel, which was established ever since 1960, and we were watching it when I was back in Kuwait before I become a political refugee. He has already aired some songs talking about bombing the enemy, which is Israel, and the kids where they want to be dressed by their mothers to go and have a meritor future, to be killed and to kill others, and that is their only happiness that they're gonna have in Syria. So I don't think he's very serious about what is going on, or does he know what is the future lies for him? I think it's going to be like a very interesting 3 months ahead, and it's changing day by day, Harrison. It's very crazy.
So, if the guy who is behind this coup is a former ISIS fighter and who leads a terrorist organization, why then did we have Bob Rae, the UN ambassador for Canada, as well as Justin Trudeau and other politicians celebrating this coup in Syria? Why is that happening? Because just from my view, having a former Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighter leading Syria is not something to celebrate.
Well, let me also express my shocks about the Canadian situation here. I've been here for like only 1.5 years, and I'm an ex-Algonquin alumni. But I just wanted to say that Canada is not the same. Canada is supporting Hamas and the anti-Semitic statements, and they say this is under the expression of freedom, and that started to arise without any noticeable controls. I've seen also Syrians here in Canada mentioning that don't ever listen to the West, don't be a puppet to the West, and they are residing in the West, and they don't care about the West. And every time we share a message on the social media, starting to say that, guys, we cannot be the only ones who are trying to embrace the culture of Canada and look after the Canadian interests, not our interests. We don't need to use this platform as a hate speech. But unfortunately, that Justin Trudeau's administration is not taking corrective measures towards this, and I think there's something has to do with their bailouts. Are they like supporting Justin Trudeau? Doesn't he know that once they get to the power, once they get that freedom, they will hijack the culture, they will hijack the power, they will hijack the streets, and people wouldn't even notice that they are entering Canada after seeing all those radical Islamists now putting their carpets on the floor and started praying in public. This is another invasion, and we call this a soft power.
So you believe that because of the extreme migration of Muslims into Canada, that's the reason why our top diplomat, essentially one of our top diplomats, the UN ambassador, is celebrating this coup in Syria, saying that this is a victory for democracy. I believe those were pretty much his words, that this is a victory for democracy. Let me ask you this, another thing we're seeing is that many of our allies are blocking Syrian refugees, any more Syrian refugees from coming into their countries. Canada has not done that. Should we be expecting another refugee crisis if these radical Islamists are taking over Syria?
Well, I hope not, because Canada is paying the price. I think something is going to happen very soon if they don't really get along with the international panels, especially the democracies in the Middle East, which is Israel is the only democracy and the only secular country in the Middle East. Alongside Emirates, they have some sort of a system where they allow the differences in ethnicity and religious beliefs to exist in the Emirates. So my only focus is that we want to keep Israel's democracy and secularism in the region, and we want them to be safe. This is the only example in the Middle East that can at least give us some hope that others will follow along. But I just wanted to follow up on the celebration. Do they know, those feminists, where they call themselves, we are the feminists, and I'm a feminist? Do they know that if one of the Canadian women just entered Syria, they're going to ask her to wear her hijab, and she will be in danger to walk in the streets without her husband next to her? Do they know that the Sharia law is calling other religions as infidels? Do they know that they are anti-democracy in Syria? I don't know what they're celebrating. Are they celebrating only removing Assad and bringing another radical Islamist part of the ecosystem that is managed by RGC? This makes me really think like 100 times to see the UN representative of Canada, the Canadian representative in the UN is celebrating with the flag. Do you know? Would you condemn in the future if they started to harass women, or they started to use women as slaves? Will you condemn that? Or are you going to say that no, this is their freedom, but we're going only to celebrate if they take any power down? Well, welcome to the Middle East ecosystem, because it's going to invade your country, and then they're going to ask to apply the Sharia law in your country, and they're going to cite your own words towards their own radical Islamist projects. And they're going to say that you have supported us back in time. We want to apply Sharia law now in this province in Canada. So it's very complicated. And I think that this is they're misinformed. I just want to use my words gently.
Yes. Well, Look, let's just hope that doesn't happen. But JJ, we appreciate you laying this out for us and giving us a better understanding of what's happening here, because the media in this country and our political class, they appear to be celebrating this. They appear to be saying this is a victory for the people of Syria. And from what you've just explained and from what I can see on social media, I just don't know if that's the case. But if anything changes and if the story gets worse, or hopefully it gets better, we'll bring you back on to explain what's going on. JJ, thank you once again for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it. And where can Canadians interact with you and find you on social media?
Well, they can find me on X, and it was a pleasure to speak with you, Harrison. And I really like what your channel is doing. Well, on X, they can find me on X, and I'm pretty active there. That's the only channel I have today.
Perfect. Well, we'll link your X account to the description of this video. Once again, JJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Harrison.